Increase your internet speed in Windows. Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. In a previous article and video, I talked about several ways to speed up Windows itself. This article and video are about doing what you can to maximize the speed of the internet connection. To start, we're going to want to basically benchmark where we're at. So what I'm going to show you is running speedtest.net. Let's fire up a browser and we're going to hit speedtest.net. And all you need to do then is click on Go. Now, one of the recommendations I have is that you run this test in more than one browser. Another recommendation is that you actually close all active programs before you run this. And yet another recommendation is that you make sure other machines on your network aren't currently hogging all of your bandwidth. Based on these numbers, there must be something else going on my network today, because I should be seeing numbers like 600 or 800 megabits per second download, and all I'm seeing right now is 265. 265 is fine for most internet browsing, but, well, I'm paying for 800. Perhaps I should be getting 800. So, with that benchmark out of the way, what do? One of the first things I'm actually going to recommend, I mentioned that article earlier, 10 ways to make Windows 10 and 11 faster. That's a great place to start. These two things work in tandem, and there are absolutely things going on in Windows that could affect your internet speed, and addressing those first is a great place to start. So number 2 on my list is something called DNS. That's the Domain Name System. What that is responsible for is taking a name like askleo.com and turning that into the IP address that's actually used to communicate. Chances are, if you haven't made any changes, you're probably just using the DNS service provided by your ISP. Those aren't always the fastest. Your web pages these days are accessing multiple different domains to actually pull all the various pieces of content. Each one will incur whatever time it takes to resolve those names into their respective IP addresses. So, what do you choose? Well, there are a bunch of alternative DNS servers that purport to be faster and, in some cases, more secure. As it turns out, there's a pretty nifty way to find out what's going to work fastest specifically for you. Remember that what's fastest in your location may be different than what's fastest here. So I recommend you run a tool called DNS Jumper. You can find it online. There'll be a link in the companion article for this video. Go ahead and run it. We're going to click this button here that says Find the Fastest DNS. It's going to run a test, actually accessing this long list of DNS servers, and then it will give you the results searched by who's the fastest. In this case, Hurricane Electric. Never heard of them. Number 2, Google's public DNS. That's actually one of the ones that I've listed. OpenDNS. That's a great solution too. Cloudflare 1.1.1.1 is also a good DNS server. The servers that are out there are significantly faster sometimes than perhaps some of the other servers you might be using. So once you know which DNS server it is you want to use, what then? Typically, the right way to do this is to make the change in your router. If we take a look at this specific machine, I'm just going to run terminal in admin mode and then run the command ipconfig/all for all. And one of the interesting pieces of information here is down here it says DNS servers. In my case, that's 10.1.10.1. That's my router. The router is then configured to basically act as a DNS cache, but it's also giving this information to all of the devices on my network. So if I make the change for a different DNS server, the router is the place to make it because it will then be updated for every machine on your network almost immediately. I can't tell you how to do that because your router is going to be very different than my router. It's usually done through your router's administrative interface, and honestly, it's not that hard. Have a look at the documentation for your router and see how to do it. Number 3, this is something that I'm actually kind of surprised many people don't think of more quickly. Wireless is slower than wired. So if you have the opportunity, use a wired connection. In my case, right here, this desktop machine, as it turns out, has both a wired and a wireless adapter. I don't know why I would use a wireless adapter since I can plug a cable into the back of my machine. That cable is going to give me a full gigabit of speed on this machine. Wi-Fi is basically radio. It's a specific form of radio, and that means it's subject to all of the different things that you might already realize radio is affected by. Things like distance and interference and signal strength and how good your antenna is and more. So, the closer your wireless device is to the router or the wireless access point, the stronger signal you're going to get. A better antenna would make for a stronger signal and a faster connection. Wi-Fi channel choice is another one. I've got an article on that on askleo, but the bottom line here is that Wi-Fi, not unlike your radio, the radio that you would be listening to perhaps in your car, there are different channels. And while you can all use the exact same channel for every communication, that causes a lot of interference, a lot of noise. There are tools that will help you specify that. And again, that's a setting you would be making in your Wi-Fi connection, which is going to be specific to the Wi-Fi hardware you have. Other devices can, in fact, cause interference. For example, many cordless phones operate on a frequency that is very close or actually overlaps with Wi-Fi. So all of a sudden, when your phone rings, your Wi-Fi drops out or gets really slow. So the other thing then to look for is other devices that are generating electrical noise close to your router, the device you're using, and so on. Finally, a lot of walls these days are made out of metal studs, aluminum studs, and that can actually cause interference as well. Again, placement of the antenna and the router with respect to each other is actually probably the single most important thing you can do to improve your Wi-Fi speed. Run the network troubleshooter. The network troubleshooter, well, let me show it to you. I'm going to click on the Start button and type troubleshooters. Troubleshoot settings. Oof. Other troubleshooters. Network and internet. I'm just going to go ahead and run it. I'm connected to the internet and it already didn't find any problem. If you're having problems, sometimes the network troubleshooter can help and identify issues and in some cases even resolve them for you. Consider upgrading your network hardware. This is another one that I think catches a lot of people by surprise, especially if they've had a home network for a very long time. If you have a router that is capable of only 100 megabits per second, and you connect it to an internet connection that is capable of more than that, you're wasting all the more than that. Your router will go no faster than 100 megabits, no matter what internet service you pay for. Now that's true not just for the router that connects you directly to the internet, but all the devices in between. So for example, this desktop connects to a switch, which connects to a router, which connects to the internet. My computer has to be capable of a gigabit. My switch needs to be capable of a gigabit. My router needs to be able to connect at a gigabit so that I can take advantage of a gigabit that could be coming down my line. Anything less than that, and normally the next step down is 100 megabits, any device between your computer and your internet connection that is slower than your internet connection will throttle what you experience. And finally, the last one, I hate to say this, but it's very, very true. Talk to your ISP. I've done this a time or two, actually. I typically will ask, okay, what can you do for me that's faster? You may end up having to pay a little bit more, but depending on how you use the internet and how you rely on the internet, as we do here, it can be worth the money. For updates, for comments, for links related to everything I've talked about, visit askleo.com/165912. I'm Leo Notenboom. This is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.